I call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Northfield Public School Board. Today is Monday, September 14th, 2015, and the time is 7 p.m. Dr. Richardson, there are a number of items in the table file.
Yes, Madam Chair. We have the PowerPoint presentation for transformational technology that Kim Brisky will be presenting tonight. We also have a number of consent grouping items in terms of personnel, which will include appointments, increases, decreases, and changes in assignment, leaves of absence, resignation and termination, and TRA part-time teacher programming. We also will have, under item for information, an update on the Special Education Cooperative, which is also included in the table file materials, along with the Transformational Technology PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no objection, we'll add these items to the agenda as we move forward. Okay, we now have an opportunity for public comment. This is a chance for members of the district to address the board. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board? Okay. We will move on then to approval of the minutes. Board members, you have in your packet minutes for the regular school board meeting held on August 24th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? So moved by Jeff. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ann. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the regular school board meeting held on Monday, August 24th, 2015, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will move on to announcements and recognitions. Dr. Richardson.
Okay, we have a few this evening. First of all, Northfield was invited to participate in the Voices for National Service, the National Service and the Continuum of Care Impact Partnerships that support students from cradle to career session in Washington, D.C. last week. High school assistant principal Marnie Thompson represented the Northfield Coalition. This day-long think tank featured national leaders from programs like Teach for America, City Year, and Vista. And Marnie was asked to be one of 4 presenters at this session, documenting how the Northfield community has taken a collaborative, collective impact approach to utilizing AmeriCorps members. So again, a piece that is continuing to grow out of all the work that's being done right now with Northfield Promise and with other programming is gaining us quite a bit of recognition as a school district. The second announcement is announcement about the International Day of Peace, which is on Monday, this 21st of September. However, there will be a community celebration on Sunday, September the 20th at 2 p.m. at Bridge Square. This year's theme is Partnership for Peace, Dignity for All. This is something that over the years the school district has been involved in either providing information to folks about the International Day of Peace, as well as a number of different activities that the students have been involved in, and whether that's the Peace Pull or the Peace Walk or work with Responsive Classroom and other pieces which, again, help to support peaceful resolution. Anyone, anywhere can celebrate Peace Day. If you can't attend this celebration, consider doing something as simple as lighting a candle at noon, sitting in silent meditation, or doing a good deed for someone you don't know. It's an opportunity to join millions of people around the world as they participate in activities, events, concerts, and festivals that celebrate the International Day of Peace. And the third piece I'd like to share with you is just information about work that we've been doing, and Matt especially has been significantly involved as he and I have worked on the principal evaluation process over the last couple of years. We were able to, at the request of the Department of Ed, put in a principal promising practice. We put one in on scoring stakeholder survey results based on principals' reflection, and they have gotten back to us indicating we're going to be one of the 10 practices that will be recognized by MDE. It will be posted on the MDE principal webpage. They indicate, however, it can be a very slow process, sometimes getting on the MDE course. Wait, so I don't think I'd jump out tomorrow and look for it. They're also going to be working with service cooperatives and professional associations to see how they might help to make these available to other districts. Again, I really appreciate the work that Matt has done in terms of helping to get this information out, and it has ended up being a very positive piece of our principal evaluation process, because it gives our principals a chance to really reflect very deeply and thoughtfully about the kinds of information that they're hearing, both from their staffs and from the parents and the community, and to put that information to good use in terms of thinking about how to continue to enhance the quality of their practice. So again, thanks a lot, Matt, for your work on this, and again to our principals, because they were the ones on the other end of the process who actually had to do the reflection as part of their evaluation system. And those are the 3 announcements I have this evening.
Okay, is there anything? No.
I would mention the passing of George Paulson, whom many of you don't know was significant in the activities of the public schools back in about 1955, 56, 57, and forward. He was representing, well, his property was on the east side of Circle Lake, so it's as far as the district goes currently, and he then became one of the first board members to represent the rural area, along with one other rural representative, and significant in several projects. I would guess that his name would be on the plaque at Sibley, perhaps at Greenville, and most probably at the high school as well. He spoke with clarity, integrity, and was a great compromiser. And so much of what we do now probably has got some roots with George Paulson. So
that was George Paulson Sr.
Senior, yes.
Senior.
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else? Anything they would like to add?
Just a mention
Yes,
of the 4 football players down in Faribault, and our thoughts and prayers with them as they recover from the car accident. So
Thank you. That's a very important mention. I have 2 things, actually. First, just wanted to thank Mary Williams and the Northfield High School Band and the cheerleaders who were part of the Defeat of Jesse James parade on Sunday, and they did an amazing job of representing our district so very well. And I know that the band had 2 practices prior to even school starting to get themselves and their music and their marching skills in shape. So it was really wonderful that our district's able to participate in such a community-wide event. And then secondly, I would like to acknowledge 2 students sitting in the audience tonight and introduce them as 2 members of the District Youth Council. And as we are aware, this is the 2nd school year actually for the District Youth Council, and the council was formed to act as a liaison between the leaders of the school district, including school administrators and school board, and the students. The council consists of 15 students that meet regularly to discuss school issues. Rob Hardy serves as the school board liaison to this group and has done an excellent job working with these students. They most recently helped solicit student input, during the first phase of the district facility study, and personally I was really impressed with their efforts and the creative ways in which they solicited input from the students. So in addition, their goal this year actually is to have a member of the District Youth Council present at all of our board meetings in order to get a better understanding of how we function as a school board, as well as to stay current on school issues. So if the 2 members that are here this evening would like to come up to the microphone and introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Katie Gilbertson, and I'm a senior this year.
Hello, my name is Allison Langston, and I'm also a senior this year.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Alice and Katie, for being here tonight, and thank you for all the great work you're doing on behalf of the District Youth Council, and we're looking forward to seeing many new faces at each meeting. Okay. With that, we'll move on to items for discussion and report. Our first is Transformational Technology Update. Here to present is Director of Technology Services, Kim Brisky. And as a reminder to board members, there's a presentation in our table file that you can follow as Kim presents.
All right. Well, good evening. Here we are at the beginning of the school year. It's the time of year that I anticipate for a good portion of the summer, of the energy of the students and the staff back in the buildings. And now I can hardly believe that it's only the 5th day. We were just having that conversation here before the start of the meeting saying, wow, it feels like we've been back at it for longer than that. And I don't know that that's a good or a bad thing, but it's a thing, I guess. I'm very articulate tonight, probably because of those 5 school days. So I just want to bring a little bit of an update on where we're at with transformational technology. Nothing really new to present, but just a look at what we've been doing so far. So I went topic by topic as opposed to chronologically here, so I'm just going to start with iPads because when we think about transformational technology, we're thinking about the personalization that we do by putting devices in our students' hands, and right now that focuses on the iPads, and so we have spent a lot of time over the past few weeks preparing the iPads and getting them all set up, working with students to make sure that they're getting everything that they need, working with teachers to make sure that the iPads have all of the materials that our students need as well. And so over the summer, we received that first phase of our new round of leases. We have from last spring, the kind of a three-phase lease implementation that we'll be replacing our current fleet with. So that first round came in. That was 910 iPad minis that are now in the hands of our 4th and 5th grade students and our staff members. Student iPads were also redistributed to grades 7 through 12 for those students. That was prior to the start of the school year. And this Wednesday and Thursday evenings, we'll be distributing the 6th grade iPads as well. So those are new for those students to have a one-to-one iPad. And then also I just want to mention that we'll be looking ahead to phase 2 of that lease, and that will come up in a little bit. The Casper management system is another piece that we implemented last year, mostly through the listening sessions that we held, hearing what we needed to do to manage our iPads better, to support our students and staff with the needs that they have for using them well, and to support our families as well. So over the summer we implemented the Casper system, tested it, did some work with it to get to know it, and we're learning on our feet right now. But it is rolling really smoothly, particularly compared to the start of last year. I feel like we have some pretty good systems in place that are functioning well. Students and staff enroll with their iPads, so when they pick their iPad up, it's right in those setup steps. It asks them to enter their network credentials. That syncs automatically with our directory, so when somebody is using a district iPad, they have to enroll with that information. If you don't have that information, you can't set it up. And it gives us some information about where the iPad is being used, what grade level, if it's a staff person or a student, and we can group them that way in Casper to provide materials for all of our people. So we have much greater control and much greater insight into the inventory of what's actually on the devices, and much greater ability to manage that content and get it to the right people. Casper Focus also comes along with that Casper management system, and this is the part that allows our teachers to focus the students in their class, to focus those iPads on a certain website or an app or an attention screen where they can put a little message to some students. And the first day of school we had a couple that said Guten Tag, and we had to, boy, where is this coming from? It was Casper Focus, and we were able to work with that pretty well. It syncs with the Skyward class lists, so teachers don't need to set that up on their own. They open an app on their iPad, log in with their network credentials, and it will know their class schedule, and it will have their rosters already loaded so that they can see the students that are in their class and be able to focus those devices. Or if a student comes in with their device already focused from a previous hour, they can release that student. So that's a good thing. We have trained all secondary teachers in using that system as well. So they tried it. I was sneaky in some professional development and had them fill out a Google form where I took their names and put them into my class, and they came back in, and I focused their iPads and gave them a little demonstration of how it works. And so they felt that, oh my gosh, my home button doesn't work. Stuck. And now they are able to use it, so it's a good thing. We also have restricted the App Store, as talked about last spring, so it is now closed for all secondary students, which is a big change from last year. It remains open for our elementary students with teacher supervision, being that those iPads are only used in the classroom, not going home. They have constant supervision. We have left it open there for some facility of getting the right apps to those elementary students who do a lot of fact practice and might have, upwards of 20 math apps that would be quite a management feat for us to get out to them. So they have a little bit more flexibility that way. So that App Store closing, like I said, is a change, and we have had some mixed reactions to that. When I presented at the distribution days, there was that was always the most fun to watch, the reactions of the crowd. There was a mix of students and parents, and Sometimes students were surprised to hear that because they hadn't heard it yet, and sometimes parents cheered. Sometimes parents had questions about why. And since then, I have worked with several families who have said, but how are we going to get these apps that we use or that we purchased last year? And so there has been some individual work with families to get, say, calculators, some homework and planning apps that we didn't push out kind of in a widespread way, and also some communications about how are we teaching our students responsibility. So it's an ongoing conversation about how we will use this ability and what the best route is moving forward. I also want to talk a little bit about community engagement. We have been making a pretty big effort to stay in touch with people and inform people about how we're making decisions and invite people into that decision-making process, as well as to equip our families to manage the technology that they're using both for school and for personal use. And so we did hold 3 social media and internet safety presentations for parents over the summer. And those were in conjunction with the Northfield Police Department, and we presented on, well, it says social media and internet safety, but some of the ways that our brains work in terms of using social media, distractions, focus, and keeping the right information in the hands of the right people. We also, like I alluded to previously, held 24 short family meetings during the high school and middle school iPad distribution. I chided at New Teacher Workshop when I introduced myself that I had to stop myself because after introducing myself, I automatically went into my family iPad presentation. But it was a good thing to do that gave us a really good opportunity to interact with families and to let people know what we're doing with transformational technology, why this is important to us, even though it's difficult, and to just answer questions that parents had about what we're up to. And then also, just moving back to where we kind of set the foundation for this year was in those listening sessions last spring. And so the feedback that we heard from teachers and from parents is now in action. And it feels good to have that response that we've said we made decisions based on what we heard and the feedback that people gave us. And now it's nice to see that action to follow it up and to be able to let the community know that we really are listening. I didn't put on this slide, and I should have, Schoology. And so we do now have Schoology for our K-12 students. That's a change. We've had it for 5th through 12th grade students in the past, and we've expanded to having it for all of our students as a communication tool for our families and for our teachers. And so training in the elementary schools is in its infancy, something that we're working through. We've had a few sessions, but something that I'd expect to see grow over the course of the year, where Schoology could become more of a one-stop shop for our parents who have children in multiple grade levels, multiple school buildings, and they could get information from the classrooms of all of their kids in one place. So we have also implemented that, and we are in the process of handing out parent codes this week for Schoology. We've seen many requests for that, so I know it's something that parents are looking for. And looking ahead, I mentioned earlier, we have phase 1 of our new iPad leases. Phase 2 comes up in January as scheduled. And we might need to relook at how we're going to purchase those iPads, as we haven't seen the price adjustments from Apple that we were expecting. And so they might still come, I'm not sure, but I'm keeping a close eye to what our options might be for the next phase of our lease. The transformational technology budget, in year 3 of our student one-to-one program, we have transitioned all of the iPad lease funding to our capital budget, so that's all funded through the capital process. We continue to have needs to invest in the resources for teaching and learning with the iPad, some of the supplies, some of the apps, textbooks, things like that. And that currently comes out of the transformational technology budget, which is in its 3rd and final year of being set aside the way that it is now. But looking ahead, I think that's just part of an ongoing conversation about how we budget and being flexible in meeting the needs of our students and staff as they arise. So a little bit when we talk about curriculum and what the needs of our students are, being able to respond with the materials that are up to date, being anticipatory of what the needs are, and making sure that our commitment is timely, so that we're not committing to a text series or curriculum that is not relevant after a short time. More responsiveness in general to student needs. And then finally, that iPad protection plan budget, I did bring that up in the family sessions at the start of iPad distribution. And for the reason that I just want to keep looking at it and make sure that it's a fair rate that we're charging our families for insurance. And I shouldn't say charging our families, it is optional. But I think it provides a good service. And right now it is doing what it's intended to do and taking care of all of the needs that we have for keeping those iPads in good working order. And then the last thing I want to talk about is really more looking to the future. When we talk about professional learning, this is the part that's exciting. You know, we spend the last 5 days and the couple weeks prior really getting the equipment ready and getting that into everybody's hands, and then we get to use it. That's the more exciting piece. So we've had some really good professional learning going on with the summer learning series. We had 10 weeks of Tuesday morning sessions for all of our staff, and they were open to teachers from outside of our district as well. We had over 36 unique sessions during that time, so a lot of options for our staff to attend sessions of interest for their own professional growth. During the fall workshop, elementary teachers all had a couple hours to learn the setup of iPads and how are they going to manage them in their classrooms, even things like organization and such, and getting those iPads all set up. And then our secondary, I did something fun with them. It was called the Tech Team Up, where our teachers actually got into teams and went about some activities that their students might do with the iPads. So some things where they had to use photos and annotate them and submit work, post to a discussion on Schoology, join a course on Schoology, all of these things that they might not do on the teaching side when they're using their iPads, but they got to see the student side a little bit. It was fun. We got some really funny responses from them, and also some information about where they want to go and the tech tools that they would like to try coming up. So we're looking at more ongoing opportunities for professional development, that being getting to that transformational teaching, the M and the R of the SAMR model highlighted there in the modification and redefinition. So what does that look like for our students, and what are the tools that I need? What's the support that I need as a teacher in order to be able to provide the best learning experience for my students? And then also a focus on collaboration and communication tools, where we're seeing our teachers really start to notice some of the value of what they can do with some really simple tools to connect their students to some really great resources. So that's where we're headed, and that's what I've got for you tonight. So definitely if there are questions, I would entertain
Board
those.
members' questions? Rob?
I'm interested in the professional development, in the professional development sessions that you have. What is the expectation for participation? Are all the secondary teachers, or is it optional that they choose to sign up for it, or?
Well, the summer learning series is certainly optional, and then we will be having some weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the school, optional before and after school. So that is there as an available option for our teachers. And then there's a lot of one-on-one available too. So I should also mention some of the things where when a teacher calls and says, hey, can you come and do this, that becomes first priority for me. And so I've had a few of those already where we've said, let's get this up and running for the start of the year. Amy Moeller would be an example of that. I worked with her on getting some rosters ready so that with Google she could distribute work to her students and manage it well on her end, and she's giddy about it. So that's kind of nice to see.
Not a word we usually use. Giddy.
When you're talking about managing documents, right? But very, very good. It gives her the ability to interact with her students during the writing process. Some of what we heard from Jan Insrud last year, and she contacted Jan during the summer and kind of got started with what she'd be able to do. And then I helped her with it this fall, and we learned even more about what you could do. And I called Jan and I said, Jan, you have to do the class folders. I just tried them with Amy and they're great, you know. And she hadn't done that part yet. And so it's some learning that goes back to those who have already tried some of these tools as well. And I think that would be an ultimate goal, to see more and more sharing, even between our school buildings, of things that we're trying and that are working. So I've set up a couple of Schoology groups for that. That was in my tech team up, that you join the Schoology group. That's secondary technology help. You post any question, anybody else is in it that gets an email notification. They go, oh, I know how to do that. They could respond and help each other, share some ideas and things like that. So fostering that collaboration and communication is one of the goals there.
And Kim, I think the key thing too is the fall professional, the ones that she has in the second bullet, those were essentially required. So
Okay.
that was during the back-to-school workshops. And then over the past several years, we've had, I would say, at least one professional development day during the school year. As you know, we have very few of those that happen during the school year. But I'm pretty sure that we've, like the middle school, for example, then we've run at least one required tech training day where people have choice. You know, there's multiple. It's almost like a summer learning series, but they have to choose one. You know, and then even with the optional ones, what we've been able to do is use the professional growth part of our master agreement, where for teachers who come to, I think it's a total of, if they come to a total of 5 3-hour sessions. This year was a little different because we did 2-hour sessions. So they'd have, if they came to 7 sessions over the 10 weeks and they kept track of it and all that, they can actually get lane change credit, 1 lane change credit, you know, toward the next movement in their salary. So while it's not, in the summer, it's not something that's required at this point, we do have several different carrots, so to speak, to get people to come in. And actually, we've had pretty good attendance overall over the past several years. A little bit down this year comparatively, but when we've had it for 3 or 4 years.
I was just kind of interested in, because, you know, during the listening sessions and everything, some of the teachers that I talked to were less enthusiastic, and was just wondering if there was like some outreach to teachers who especially were kind of more dubious about iPads to
Sure. There is a reason I put that tech team up group moving around, active, using the technology into the required slot, so that we would get some really hands-on learning with our staff while they were there, and it was in their schedule to be there. And that's also where they got the Casper Focus training, where I knew they were already scheduled to be learning about technology, and so that was helpful. I would also say we have the Ed Camp throughout the year that tends to focus on just innovative practice in how we're meeting the needs of our students, and the technology plays a pretty big role in that. So that's one, and then, as Matt said, there's usually a scheduled technology professional development time during those days.
You talked about the summer learning series, that it wasn't all technology.
No, it wasn't, and that's a goal that I had at the start of the year. You know, in the past, it's been referred to as Tech Boot Camp, and there's a couple of things about that I think, well, boot camp, are we going really, we're going to progress through this and be, you know, at some end point ready to go, or and does it have to be tech boot camp? Much of what I like to talk about is just good teaching and the technology as a tool to be able to do that. And so we had some sessions on mindset, so growth mindset, which if we could get all of our teachers and our students and our administrators functioning on a growth mindset, think of what could happen and how technology might be involved in that. It's a valuable session. So some things about Sarah Swan McDonald led one on the vocation of teaching, Parker Palmer's work, a really big variety. And there was some of that down to, you know, how to use Pear Deck to present and get feedback during your classes. So right from one tool out to some really more philosophical thinking. I did some on SAMR, just the district's vision and moving beyond SAMR, and what it even means mostly for the benefit of our new teachers who might not have the same terminology that the rest of our staff has, and so we could kind of bring people up to speed on how we talk about using technology. So a vast range.
Okay, thanks.
Question, Ellen.
I had a comment. So you didn't cover it in here, but the one thing I've noticed is that Team Snap, the new app that's being used for the co-curricular activities, and that's been fantastic in terms of a communication tool. So.
I didn't even know about it, so that's wonderful to hear, Ellen. You've informed me. There are some really great things going on even outside of just the immediate school day. One of the examples that others requested to was this My Homework app, which is a planner that lots of our students had used, and I didn't know that either. And but after I got a few requests, I went, this is just going to get pushed out to everybody, and so it did. The football team is the first group to get their iPads because they use it for their playbook, and so it definitely crosses into some of the extracurriculars that we have going here for our students.
Other questions or comments? No.
Is there a general consensus of the parents that, I expect some of them are probably in all ends of the continuum, but is there a general acceptance, or what is the consensus?
I think we have a general acceptance. We have a general sentiment of being able to work together and partner with our parents and to make the tools the best that they can be for each of our families. They are very different in what they actually want and how the best way is to accomplish integrating technology for their students. You know, I've shared before one parent who had has two sons, very different, and needs a different setup for those two children in the same household. After one of the family meetings during distribution, I had one family come up and ask me to be sure that YouTube was not pushed out to students, and then one come up and ask me to be sure that it was pushed out to students. And so I think another long, far-reaching continuum of what parents would like. I had a really passionate email this week wondering when we were going to trust our students to be responsible with technology and really wanting an open environment for their students. And so there is a range, and yet applause at closing the App Store during the meetings at times. And so it's, I think we're at a point where parents are saying, yes, this is what we're doing. How we do it looks differently for different parents. And so I think the same way that we personalize for our students, we need to have ways to personalize for our families and to be able to meet very different needs. So looking into ways for that.
Thank you for your work.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I just had one comment. As you recall, last year, Paul Eddy and Carl Wieseman were here on the flipped classroom, and so my daughter is fortunate enough to be in a flipped classroom, and so as part of their first assignment, they needed to watch a video as well as parents watch a video, and it was extremely well done by Mr. Eddy in terms of presenting the concept of flipped classroom, laying out responsibility of student and teachers and how parents can be involved, and it was a 5-minute video, and it was extremely well done and very engaging for parents to, if you can make open houses, sometimes that's great for parents, but oftentimes you can't, or that the information can't be communicated as concisely as it was on the iPad presentation, so it was really well done. And I echo Noel's sentiment. You've done an outstanding job with this. The iPad distribution piece went extremely smoothly. I think everybody was in and out of here. I marvel at how you guys are able to do that, and the balance that you're striking with parents and students and staff and everybody wanting something different. I think you're just doing an amazing job. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to more updates.
Yes, we will have more. And I might even come with a little bit more energy.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on. Our next item for discussion actually will be done by myself. It's the summary of our superintendent's performance evaluation. And as part of our board responsibilities, we complete a review each year of the superintendent's job performance. Board members individually completed Dr. Richardson's performance appraisal, so I'd like to provide a summary of the collective results to the board. This year, as in years past, we use the appraisal form developed by the Minnesota School Board Association. This form allows board members to provide numeric ratings for 49 job responsibilities organized around 10 major topics. In addition to completing the numeric ratings, board members were generous in the additional narrative comments they provided. Board members collectively gave Dr. Richardson an exceptional review. Collectively, we identified achievement of outstanding on 48 of 49 items and a very good performance on 1 of 49 items. The narrative comments provided by board members centered on his strengths of strong leadership, great vision, and skillful approach to dealing with the myriad of complex issues that face the district. And briefly, I would like to highlight some of Dr. Richardson's accomplishments for the 2014-15 school year as cited by board members. To begin, Dr. Richardson's efforts to form the 5-district special education cooperative demonstrated his forward-thinking leadership and his commitment to good stewardship of the district's resources. In addition, his ability to work effectively with other superintendents was a key factor in a district's giving the proposal their full consideration. When it became evident that the initial proposal would not move forward, Dr. Richardson remained firm in his resolve to find alternatives that would provide the best learning environment for the district's special education students with complex needs. Additionally, during the second year of the one-on-one iPad initiative for 612 students, the district did an extensive review to gain the best possible understanding of the current program's strengths and challenges. Dr. Richardson and his team listened to teachers and families about the iPad use and concerns about distraction at the secondary level and ample devices at the elementary level. These key programmatic changes reflect Dr. Richardson and his team's commitment to the district's overarching mission of delivering educational excellence. Additionally, Dr. Richardson was instrumental in securing the EdSys grant of $220,000 from the state. Without this critically needed funding, the district would not have had the resources to maintain the current level of RTI staffing, nor be able to provide the needed instructional support in the areas of reading, math, and positive behavior across K-12. To move on, the Northfield School District's role as authorizers of the community's 2 charter schools, Prairie Creek and Arcadia, requires a great deal of effort and ongoing oversight. Chris's leadership and willingness to spearhead the effort required to be an authorizer has allowed the district to continue in this capacity. Dr. Richardson understands the importance of having these schools as a viable option for a number of Northfield students for whom these charter schools are the best choice. During this past year, Chris dealt patiently and professionally with handling the increased rigor of the authorization renewal process and the onerous effort it required to complete the application for renewal. Board members also cited during every legislative session, there are a number of K-12 education issues debated and laws drafted that had far-reaching and long-term impact on school funding and policy. During this past legislative session, Chris, as in years past, worked tirelessly with lawmakers to help them more fully understand the complexities of these issues. As a highly respected member of several influential organizations like Schools for Equity in Education and the Minnesota Association of School Administrators, he played an integral role in helping draft legislation that would place school districts in the best possible position. He continues to sacrifice a great deal of his personal time to advocate for not only Northfield, but districts statewide. In addition, board members also recognize Dr. Richardson's outstanding efforts in overseeing all financial operations and for his leadership of a strong district team who steward the resources of the district with exemplary approaches. And finally, as what came to no surprise of those of us who work with him, this year Dr. Richardson was awarded the prestigious Polaris Leadership Award by the Minnesota Association of School Administrators. This award reflects statewide recognition of Dr. Richardson's exemplary school leadership. He was recognized for his qualities of professional courage, creation of a legacy of excellent leadership, fostering innovation, and contribution through example and mentoring. So that is summary of his review. Would like to thank Dr. Richardson for another outstanding year and for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to board members for completing the performance appraisal and for your contribution. So if there's any other questions or comments? Okay, we will move on then. There are no items for individual action, so we will move on to approval of the consent grouping. As a reminder, there were a number of personnel items in the table file to be added to the consent grouping this evening. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent grouping? Is there a motion to approve the consent grouping?
So moved.
Moved by Ellen, second. Second by Margaret. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent grouping say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Items for information. As a reminder, there is a handout in your packet to aid. Dr. Richardson will be providing an update on the special education co-op.
Okay. So what I just want to do this evening is, as kind of a follow-up, Julie, to what you've just shared, is kind of the next steps we have taken in terms of looking at the process of moving forward in supporting our setting for special education students when the new or the current joint powers structure is no longer available, which will be at the end of the 2015-16 year. The document that I've shared with you is something that we shared with the Faribault District last week to talk with them about the formation of a new co-op with Faribault and to assume basically the joint efforts in terms of providing the setting for programs for both of our districts. What is, I think, important for people to understand is that we've been operating under a joint powers structure for the last 12 years. However, new funding strategies or new funding approaches that the department is requiring for all districts will no longer allow us to continue with that joint power structure that we've used in the past. In the past, the joint power structure really was set up where everything was shared on a 50-50 basis in terms of the building lease, the build-out, all of the staffing, and including the administrator and so on. And the only thing that was split out in terms of being differential was the actual costs of the education of individual students that came from each district. That particular structure is no longer available to us going forward. And so when we talked with Faribault last week, we basically said, there's really only two options according to the Department of Ed that we can use to go forward. One is a process called a host district arrangement. The other one is called a two-district co-op agreement. And what I've outlined for you here is kind of the core elements of each piece. And the recommendation that we will be making to you here over the next several weeks will be moving in the direction of the two-district co-op agreement. There are some significant issues with doing the host district arrangement that really do not make it, we believe, an ongoing strategy that we want to use. Specifically because when you do a host district agreement, basically all the students that go to that particular program actually are open enrolled into the individual district and then are enrolled in the Setting 4 program that's available. In doing that, however, it means that the host district can never deny open enrollment to any student, and the host district then becomes responsible for transportation. So if the student wanted to come from Jordan and the parent home open enrolled their student into Northfield or Faribault, then Northfield or Faribault would be responsible for having to go pick up that student and bring them. And we could not deny that student being involved in the program, even if our enrollments were such that we weren't in a position to do so. We also know that in a host school enrollment situation, there's a cost that is concerning in that with the co-op agreement, basically 100% of the student cost can be turned into the state for reimbursement. With the host district arrangement, immediately if a student is brought into your district, 10% of the cost resides with the host district. So as you can imagine, when you have the cost of a program potentially being $50 or $60 or $70,000 for an individual student, then if you take 10% of each of those kids that you have, you suddenly begin to have significant additional costs for the host district. Also, the way it is set up with the host arrangement, what ends up happening is that in terms of the leasing of the facility, the host district must lease their own facility. They are not allowed to spread the cost of that leased facility between all of the districts that are using the program. And there's not the availability of what are called org site rates, which actually give you additional ability to recapture dollars from the state. And then finally, all of the staff are paid by the host district, and they must operate under the contract provisions of the host district only. So in comparison, as we talk with the department, they are really recommending to us that even though we can't move to the 5-district co-op, that we should look at a 2-district co-op agreement going forward. And you'll see the information shared there down the right-hand side of this document. The key thing is that we would be coming back and asking you, just as we did earlier this summer, to approve a co-op agreement. It would be between Faribault and Northfield as the two members of the co-op. And we would be asking then to have you pass a resolution that then would be submitted to MDE so that we could receive a new district number and a district type. They indicated to us it would not be appropriate for us to try to take the 5-district co-op and have people resign or leave that co-op because it actually takes 17 months for that to happen, and we don't have 17 months. So they're suggesting we just leave that one on the shelf and then we actually implement a new one. When we moved to a two-district co-op, then basically, instead of having individual parents requesting that a student be put into a program, the request is made by the resident district. So a resident district, let's say Farmington, says, we have a student that needs a program. They would come to the co-op, and the co-op would determine if there was space available for that program. And at that point then, they would allow them to come into the program, but the resident district would continue to have to pay the transportation cost to move the students there. We know that another positive piece of the two-district co-op agreement is that 100% of the student costs are reimbursed by the state, and while general ed aid stayed with the resident district, we're able to tuition bill back all the costs to the resident district. And if there are relevant costs that are not covered under the state's original review, we have an appeal process through the MDE to try to get those resources back. There is no appeal process available if you're a host district. We also know that in doing this, we immediately have students go into the co-op agreement. There is no ending up going into the host district finance system and then being shifted over to the co-op. We also, with the co-op, are allowed to lease all of the facilities that are being used. So for us at this point, we can lease not only, or continue to lease the CREC facility in Faribault, but also a facility in Northfield. And we are working very hard right now on two possible facilities within the Northfield community that we believe would be appropriate for providing the SUN program, the Students with Unique Needs program. The power of being in a co-op arrangement is that then all the costs of the leases come to the co-op, and then basically those dollars go to the state, and we are reimbursed for those, and then any additional costs then go back directly to the two districts involved. So there's a definite cost advantage, and because we get these expanded org site rates, it allows us to capture more of the costs. So we can capture costs like custodial and maintenance services for the facilities, and even possibly the food service programming. Then finally, the other thing that we believe is the real advantage of the two-district co-op agreement is that staff can be hired by the co-op under a co-op meet and confer agreement. So that means we could actually, just as we talked about with the 5-district co-op, that basically we could have a meet and confer agreement that would be used to hire both the licensed and non-licensed staff that would run the program. Or we can have the co-op basically determine to have one contract that will service both facilities, or we could split the contracts and have the Faribault facility under the Faribault contract, the Northfield facility under the Northfield contract. So it gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of making those two pieces work. And then we can also then do the same thing with any other contracts that we would need to have. Could all be done through the co-op, and then the dollars and costs would be spread back among the districts that are participating. So our desire at this point will be to come back to you in the near future. It may either be at probably the first meeting in October, and really ask you to come back and approve a new what will be the Cannon Valley Special Education Cooperative, SEVSEC agreement, and that the SEVSEC agreement will be to implement between Faribault and Northfield a two-district cooperative under the new cooperative law. So our belief is that this will be a much more beneficial approach for us to take than trying to do individual host districts. And while it will not be as cost effective as a 5-district cooperative, it will still be much more cost effective than a single host district, or us ending up having to have all of our setting 4 students going to other districts outside of Northfield and Faribault to provide the services that they require. So in the end, we think this is the best strategy that we can move forward with. And we did have a good conversation with Faribault last Thursday. I think they're on board and ready to move forward with this particular piece. And so there will be a lot of activity occurring over the next several months to put that together, including the final leasing of a facility here in Northfield and the build-out of that facility to have it prepared for the fall of 2016-17. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about this right now, but this is kind of the process and the direction that we're headed.
Jeff?
Is there any potential to add other districts in the future?
Yes, you could still, just as we had with the original 5-district SEMSEC co-op, we could have additional school districts who could request to be added. If they would be added, then there would be a negotiated amount that would cover their portion of the cost of a build-out, and then they would be included, and the dollars and costs would then be spread based on the number of students that would be involved. So the reality is, if somewhere down the road, let's say in Owatonna or another district says, well, maybe we really should be in this program, the option is there to do that at any time. And we think that's a real advantage. Right now, the other issue that we are facing is that if we think about going to the north, everybody else is already in an intermediate district. So they're either in the 917 district that's located in Rosemont Apple Valley, or they're in the new Carver-Scott intermediate district that will be is the Southwest intermediate district, which is Jordan and actually stretching as far south as Montgomery-Lonsdale. And so there really are not options there, and if you look around kind of the rest of the direction, most others are either going to the Goodhue co-op or going to other co-ops that are available. And so this really seems to be our best option at this point.
Other questions?
So again, we will be back soon with a new resolution, and whatever, and since it was lovely enough, we already had people identified to serve on the board and so on, it will move very quickly, I think, once that piece is ready to go.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we'll look forward to more action on this in October. And thank you again for all your work. It's been quite a journey.
And then the one other thing for item for information is, because of the other thing, Julie, you mentioned earlier, I will not be at the September 28th board meeting. And so Matt will be stepping in and filling my shoes for that meeting because that's when we'll be getting the Polaris Award. So I have not figured out, as much as I'd love to be able to clone myself, I've not figured out how to do that. And at my advancing age, it would probably break something anyway if I did. So.
Well, we're excited for you to be there and receive the award that you so much deserve. Now, is there a speech required, or is it go on stage, get a plaque?
Oh, no, there's a speech required. Yeah. The other really nice piece with this is that as part of it, the Ehlers and Associates basically provides a $1,000 student scholarship. So I'll be able to have a scholarship that I'll be able to present to a student this spring for further education. So that's also a nice additional piece.
Well, that's all exciting. Thank you. Okay, so we are now through the agenda. Just a reminder of future meetings: Monday, September 28th and Monday, October 12th at 7 p.m. With that, I ask for a motion that we adjourn. Moved by Noel, second. Second by Ann. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.